Can it heal itself? We don't doubt that it won't heal itself when you cut yourself. When you cut yourself, those two pieces of skin will join back together, won't they? And I'm sure we've all got somewhere on our body where at some time we were cut. It will heal itself, little tiny two-letter word here. It will heal itself if you give it the right conditions. One of the conditions is keeping those two pieces of skin together, and it might be stitched, or it might be have a bit of tape put on it, or an old bush remedy in Australia is bull ants. You don't have many nasties like we do you? But bull ants are these great big ants with two pinchers, and what the old bushmen would do is they'd bite or cut the head off the bull ant and put the pinchers into the two pieces of skin, maybe 4 or 5 heads of bull ants, and it would hold those, and rigor mortis would set in, it would hold those pieces of skin together. But I think if I was in the bush, I'd rather use the pine pitch. Have you heard that? The pitch out of the pine tree, or the sap out of the pine tree, will also hold it together. As an orthopaedic surgeon said to me when I was sitting on the plane next to him, he said, bones were healing long before we orthopaedic surgeons came along. You see, what heals? It's not the surgeon or the doctor or the naturopath or the nutrition. It's the human body. And it will heal itself if you give it the right condition. Now, if you cut yourself and keep opening it and get a little bit of dirt and rub it in and for good measure put a bit of manure in, is that going to heal? No, you know what God gave us? He gave us common sense. And you know there's been a death and no one attended the funeral because no one knew he died. It was the death of common sense. Isn't that true? It's just basic common sense that if you get a cut, and it's not rocket science, you got to wash it, you got to clean it, because you see this skin is like a suit of armour. And whenever you split it or cut it or blister it, you have to be careful, don't you? Or pathogens from the air or the dirt may get in, and then your body will give a response by swelling it, and all your dead white blood cells called pus, you've heard of that? They do a mighty job in trying to keep that clean, to heal that. So if the human body was designed to heal itself, the million-dollar question is, over the other side, why? Why aren't we healing? Well, the human body will heal itself if you give it the right conditions. I'd like to suggest that the conditions aren't quite right. Many are sick through ignorance because they are unaware of the basic conditions required for healing. Some are common sense, granted, but it's been made very complicated, hasn't it? And what I want to do in this series is make it very, very simple, because I believe we should be our own doctor, because only you know how you feel, only you know how your body responds or reacts to different things. In fact, if you say to me, Barbara, feel my sore hand, can I feel your sore hand? No, I can't feel your sore hand. I can have a look, but only you can feel that. And part of being your own doctor is listening. Here are some simple things. I'm a bit cold, I'll put a coat on. That's listening. I'm a bit hot, I'll take the coat off. That's simple, and we all know that. In fact, I was even taking my big coat off today in Invercargill. Whoa, I didn't think you did that in Invercargill. And where I was in a very sunny lounge room, and I not only took my coat off, I took my next jacket off. My body is speaking to me. Now they're simple, they're easy. And when I got to my host's house today, they said, are you hungry? I said, yes. Can we eat? My body was giving me another sign. It is hunger. And a few hours later, my host said, would you like a bit of fruit? I said, oh, well, I'm still full. Can you see, these are very simple. But going a little bit further to some of the more signs and symptoms, sometimes we're not sure. We're not sure, and I love teaching people how to be their own doctors, and this is what this seminar is all about. So what I'd like to begin with is, why are people sick? What is the true cause of disease? And today in medicine there are two theories, I call them the two Gs, the germ theory and the gene theory. So I'd like to address those two theories. I'd like to have a look and see if they are the true cause of disease. And in looking at that, I'd like to have a look at their true role in the running of the human body. And we're going to begin with the gene theory. In 1953, it was headlines in the newspaper. Secret of life had been discovered. Watson and Crick's, two scientists, had been able to unravel the DNA. What's the DNA? It's the genetic code inside every cell. And we have 23 chromosomes from our mother. Now, my mother's chromosomes determine that I have brown hair, that I have blue eyes, and 23 chromosomes from our father, and my father's chromosomes determine that I am short. Now, nothing I do will change my height. I might wear some big shoes, but pelvis wouldn't like it. I might put some contact lenses on and become brown eyes. I might dye my hair, but guess what? When I was a hairdresser, I learnt that half an inch a month your hair grows, yeah? And if I decide to be blonde in half an inch, what's coming through? Brown. Because nothing I do will change that. It seems like a tiny little step to say nothing I do will change the fact that my mother had rheumatoid arthritis and died at 51, so will I. And I'm 63 and you've probably noticed I'm not dead. That's because genetics loads the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. Isn't that good news? Isn't that good news? It's not a death sentence, your genes. So you could say to Angelina Jolie, you don't have to take your breasts off. You don't have to cut your ovaries out. Genetics loads the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. And you can switch that trigger on or off, depending on the conditions you give the human body. That's why you're the doctor. So let's have a look at how this can be done. Now, our body is made up of 100 trillion cells. In fact, if I look at my skin, I can't see cells, but if I put it under the microscope, I can certainly see lots of little cells. When you think about it, we are just a bunch of cells. We're eye cells, hair cells, brain cells, skin cells, bone cells, pancreatic cells, liver cells, and to understand how the body heals, we need to know how it works. And to know how it works, we need to go to the CBD. What's the CBD? The central business district of the human body is the inside workings of the cell. And we're going to go there just about every lecture. And we're going to go to different places. Did you know there's a literal city inside the cell of the human body? Let's have a look. Here is the cell. And today we're going right to the nucleus in the centre where the DNA is. And what Watson and Crooks had been able to do is pull out the DNA. And you've probably all seen drawings of the DNA. And there's a lot of information in the DNA. It's like a library. And if you were to put all the information that's in the DNA into alphabetical language, it would fill 1,000 books with 1,000 pages and 3,000 letters on each page. I can hardly understand that one. Psalm 139, verse 14, the Bible says, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvellous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. And that psalmist didn't know about the DNA. And that is all coiled up right in the middle, and it's made up of the food we eat. The outside strands are made up of polysaccharides. And polysaccharides basically means many sugars. And everything we eat is made up of many sugars. That's the outside strands. The inside bands is made up of amino acids. And amino acids is a breakdown from the protein that we eat. So at lunch today I had chickpeas. In America they call them garbanzos. Very good source of protein. At breakfast I had some nuts and some grains, more source of protein. Now the glue that glues these two together is minerals. And the food that is the highest in minerals is dark green leafy vegetables. We should eat dark green leafy vegetables every day. And if you don't eat dark green leafy vegetables every day, you should have a dose of green barley or spirulina or chlorophyll. Most people would prefer the dark green leafy vegetables. And when I look at some supermarket trolleys, I wonder how their DNA will ever be made. Where's the nutrients? Hippocrates said, let food be your medicine and medicine be your food. And 400 BC, he didn't know about the DNA and how its very structure is made up of the food that we eat. We are constantly being remade. You've got new eye cells every 1 to 2 days. That's why if you have eye surgery, it's almost day surgery. And if you get something in your eye, you've got to get it out within a day, ideally, because guess what? The cells will grow over it. And I tell you what, it's so annoying. It's our body saying, get it out, get it out. Isn't that true? You ever had something in your eye? The next quickest of the cells that line our gastrointestinal tract. And on Friday night, I'll be looking at in detail at our gastrointestinal tract. In fact, on Friday night, and that I think it's at the other venue. On Friday night, we're going to start at the mouth, and I'm going to take you on a journey all through the gastrointestinal tract. Fascinating. But it's lined with villi. This is, once you get out of the stomach, it's lined with villi that basically look like that. The new cell is made down here. It travels up, and away it goes every 3 to 5 days.
Intestinal villi are tiny, finger-like projections lining the inner wall of the small intestine. They significantly increase the surface area for nutrient absorption. Each villus is covered with even smaller structures called microvilli, forming the brush border, which further enhances absorption. Villi contain blood vessels and lymphatic vessels lacteals to transport nutrients like amino acids, sugars, and fats into the bloodstream or lymphatic system. They play a critical role in digestion and nutrient uptake, ensuring the body gets the energy and building blocks it needs from food.
You've got a new liver every 6 weeks. You've got new bones every 3 months, and you've got a new skin every month. Where does the old skin go? Isn't that why we wash our clothes and wash our bodies and vacuum our floors and wash our sheets? Because you're constantly letting off the dead skin. That's why it's a good idea to exfoliate, rub. I like to have towels that don't have fluffy softness in it, got a bit hard, rub yourself. So every 3 to 5 days, new cells that line the gut, every 1 to 2 at the eye. Constantly being remade. It is said we've got a new body about every 2 years. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how the new cell is made. And we're going to look at how a new gastrointestinal tract cell is made. All the information is in the DNA of everything. But we don't want the information on how to make a new brain cell, liver cell. So that's all switched off. And the information we want is switched on. And a photocopy is made. Because even though DNA can be pulled out and put back in, it cannot leave the nucleus. So a photocopy is made, RNA, and it travels down to another section in the cell called ribosome. And ribosome is the little factory, or basically the workshop where the new cell is made. And the new cell starts to be made. Forgive the illustration, but it actually helps you to understand how the new cell is made. The first brick goes down, and the brick is an amino acid. Maybe it's tyrosine. Then the next brick goes down, and the next brick is another amino acid. Maybe it's phenylalanine. And then the next brick goes down according to the formula. And maybe that one is methionine. So brick after brick goes down, and every 3 to 5 days out pops a new gastrointestinal tract cell. Every 3 to 5 days. Okay. Well, how come someone with Crohn's disease, irritable bowel, colitis, how come they don't heal in, let's be generous, 2 weeks? Is that a reasonable question? I'd like to suggest it's a very reasonable question. So in addressing that, and I'll address it in detail on Friday night, but I'd like to touch on it now and show you how the new irritable bowel syndrome cell is made. So photocopy's made, called RNA, comes down to the little workshop factory, ribosome, where the new cell is made. The first brick goes down. Maybe the first brick is there, tyrosine. It's time for the next brick to go down, and we've got a problem. Piece of information is missing. Body's not quite sure what to put in there because it's not there. Ever tried to make a cake and there's a piece of ingredients missing? Doesn't work. There's a rogue cell, and this rogue cell is a breakdown from maybe chemicals, genetically modified foods, and it's always looking for somewhere to poke itself. So in it pokes, because there's a gap. It's just looking for a gap. Now it's time for methionine. But oh no, there's no methionine. The person is suffering from a protein deficiency. Or maybe their gut's not working and they can't break down their protein properly. So we've got another gap. And another rogue cell comes along and in it pushes itself. And then maybe phenylalanine comes along, and where's phenylalanine going to fit? Can you see? There's no shape. It's like pieces of a jigsaw. It's just incredible, the workings of the human body and how everything has been designed to fit perfectly in. And we've got another problem. The person's short in minerals. Minerals literally glue us together. Dear, we're in a sad state, aren't we? And every 3 to 5 days, out pops a new, very sad-looking, irritable bowel syndrome cell. Now, what I did just then was I touched on quite a few reasons why people are not healing. But the one I'd like to look at in detail is what is causing the damage to the DNA. And sometimes the damage is over here, especially when you realise that there are enzymes constantly going up and down, healing the glitches. But if the person isn't supplying the nutrients to make the enzymes, can you see not even the enzymes can be made? So let's have a look at what causes the damage in the DNA. Question mark. Well, 92% of DNA damage today, research is showing, is coming from a mineral deficiency. A mineral deficiency? How could people be mineral deficient? I know in Australia, because we're English-Scottish descent, that a lot of people, I know growing up, we only ate a lettuce leaf in the middle of summer. And every night we had chops or sausages, mashed potatoes, frozen peas or beans every night of the week. There's not a lot of minerals in there. Now, we know that people that live on fast food, they're not getting any, but even people who are eating fruits and vegetables aren't having the minerals. One of the reasons is today in agriculture, the soil is used again and again and again. You see, when a crop is in the ground, it uses minerals to grow. And so when that crop is taken out, no other crop should be put in until all the minerals are replaced. There's your compost. That's why organically grown fruits and vegetables have a far higher mineral content. Have you ever eaten an apple off a tree? Taste is amazing. Or strawberry off a strawberry plant. You know what you're tasting? Minerals. It's minerals that gives food its flavour. I was on the plane one day and I got an apple. Took a bite. If I'd had eye patches on, I wouldn't even know what I was eating. I'm afraid I couldn't eat it. There was no flavour, no minerals. So why didn't it have minerals? Maybe it was grown in soil that was treated with superphosphate. Superphosphate produces show ponies of vegetables. Looks good, but there's no flavour in there. And because that plant is so deficient in basic nutrients, all the bugs attack it. And then the farmer comes along and sprays it. And that further reduces it. Then it's picked too early. Then it's stored too long. Can you see all the little bits and pieces that are bit by bit robbing the minerals out of the plants? So this explains why so many are mineral deficient today. 92% of DNA damage, the research is showing, is a mineral deficiency. There's an excellent book that goes into detail in this. It's by Dr. Robert Thompson. It's called The Calcium Lie. And he has the figures in there that show that, our soils are deficient. Our plants are about 50% less minerals today than it was 50 years ago. Scary. But there's more. There are stimulants that people are partaking of that rob the body of the minerals. So one is the food doesn't have enough, and the next is, I call it Australia's darling. Don't know if it's New Zealanders' darling. Caffeine. Caffeine not only disrupts the neurotransmitters in the brain, affecting the DNA so that the baby can be born with a tendency to attention deficit syndrome hyperactivity. So stimulant caffeine not only disrupts the neurotransmitter gene but it also robs the body of magnesium and calcium. Also, sugar, and I'm referring to the pure crystallized acid that's been extracted from the sugarcane plant. It is said that it leaves our body better dressed than when it went in. What does it leave with? Our minerals. What also, so they're two big mineral leeches, but what another stimulant that damages the DNA is alcohol. Children are being born with fetal alcohol syndrome to parents that have 2 drinks a week. Absolutely, it's dangerous for a woman to drink alcohol in pregnancy, but I'm talking about before that. I'm talking about the DNA, the genes that are being given to that baby because both parents' drinking habits before they even conceive. Bruce Lipton, in his book Biology of Belief, he claims that parents are the genetic engineers of their children. Our lifestyle habits affect our genes. Also, tobacco. Children are being born today with less alveoli in their lungs. Holes in the honeycomb shape that holds the alveoli together. These children can develop emphysema without ever having smoked. A lady said, well, what about my 92-year-old grandfather? He's still smoking a pipe. You heard those stories? Not a lot of them, but they're there. My answer to that is, well, his mother must have done everything right and he's been born with strong genes. But he wouldn't have given a strong gene pool to his son. And if his son smokes, he'll barely reach 60. And if his son smokes, that's the 30-year-old man in hospital dying of lung cancer, huh? We're not islands. Everything we do affects. What also causes damage in the DNA is genetically modified foods. Did you know that President Vladimir Putin has passed a law that any Russian who grows genetically modified foods is to be considered a terrorist? Whew. Did you think that would come out of Russia? In fact, you put GMO and Vladimir Putin into the net and you'll get his statement. He says, we look over at the West, at the over-medicated, over-vaccinated, overfed, large technology exposure, and we see the nations being weakened. And the Russians pride themselves on their strength. He's even giving land away to Russians who will grow food organically, non-GMO. Unfortunately, in America, Australia and New Zealand, they do not have to say if it's genetically modified. What is genetic modification? Basically, it's the splicing the DNA of an Atlantic salmon and the DNA of a tomato together, hoping to produce a tomato that'll grow in our winter, but actually it doesn't. And then when the tomato grows, it's got all these strange centres. There's this huge grey area with genetically modified foods. And it's so grey that they actually don't know the full effect. So how can you ensure that you're not eating genetically modified food? Well, basically, you have to buy organic. If an organic farmer uses genetically modified seed, he loses his status. And you can still get non-GMO, non-hybridized seeds. And the good thing about those seeds is the next year you'll get more veggies coming up. In my garden, tomatoes are my weeds because of my... Anyway, I'm afraid I have to pull a lot of them out, especially now because they're not going to survive the winter. But how nice when your weeds are just vegetables. You can pick and choose what you want then. Also, what causes damage in the DNA, you see, eating genetically modified foods has the ability to tamper with your DNA. Chemicals. We've got to get the chemicals out of our homes, out of our toothpaste, out of our shampoo, out of our food, out of our laundry cupboards. What you can clean with, and it's real cheap. Vinegar. White vinegar and sodium bicarbonate powder. In Australia we have a sodium bicarb paste called gumption. I don't know if you have that here. And the other is elbow grease. Scrubbing it. And also the microfiber cloths. That's cheap cleaning. You want to become a millionaire, become a green cleaner. I've known a few that have become very wealthy because there's a lot of houses out there that want green cleaners. And there's a lot of families where mum and dad are working and they need a cleaner. Also, probably the biggest chemical company in the world is the pharmaceutical company. Drugs never cure disease, they just change the form and location of the disease. This week, I trust by the end of the week, you'll have a lot of alternatives to drugs. I acknowledge that drugs in a crisis can save a life, but you know, drugs are being used when there's no crisis. So that's where I can help, is to come in and show you what you can do. And they have the ability to damage the DNA. The thalidomide tragedy is a reminder of such a thing. Also, what can damage the DNA is electromagnetic field excess. Now, we are electrical people. How I love my iPad, because I'm able to go all over the world and still answer my emails and help, especially mothers with sick children. But I try not to have it on my lap. Do you know what the research is showing now? Young girls that have their iPads or their computers, their laptops on their lap, those girls, 47% of them are having miscarriages when they have babies, because it's on their lap and it's actually interfering with the development of their eggs. Gee. So on the table, have it on the table.